Hey, I'm Cory,
Hey, I'm Bex.
and we are part of the Lighthouse Project. We are filming the Firepit, which is our podcast. When we originally planned this episode, we were going to talk about adultery, just because that's what we had pulled from our beautiful jar of topics. And then Roe v. Wade was overturned, and we decided we would much rather spend our time talking about this than about adultery. And adultery might still come up. I think it definitely will on my end. But it will not be the theme of today's episode. Because we feel like this attack on uterus holding people is way more important to address right now. And I think that's where I'm going to start. This is an attack on uterus holding people. This is not an attack on women. This is an attack, yes, on cis women. Yes, also on assigned female non-binary people like myself. Also on trans men who have uteruses or at one point did have a uterus. And more than that, it's an attack on human rights. So I don't want anyone to hold this misconception that Roe v. Wade being overturned is just an attack on women's rights, which would be bad enough. It is an attack on human rights.
Yeah. And our right to privacy.
Absolutely. And our right to autonomy. The overturn of Roe v. Wade literally says to everyone who holds a uterus that the government now has more control over their bodies than they do.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to stress that while Roe v. Wade granted the right to abortion, it is not just abortion that is under attack. I think Roe v. Wade being overturned puts a really dangerous precedent. And it's not just abortion. It is our right to privacy, our right to autonomy, and there are several.
It has a domino effect.
It absolutely has a domino effect. I think there are other rights and liberties that have been granted through similar cases that could very easily fall. In addition to being non-binary, I'm also very queer. My preferred partners and I would not be able, potentially if what I think is next, which is marriage equality, I won't be able to marry my partner. I could lose medical rights if my partners were to be in the hospital. And I know this is getting ahead of ourselves, because currently, yes, marriage equality still exists. And even in some states, abortion still exists. We do live in South Carolina, where
Yes,
there is currently also under consideration a 6-week abortion ban in conjunction with outlawing abortions and criminalizing abortions and
the heartbeat law, I believe.
Or basically 6 weeks post-conception. The thought is that the fetus has a heartbeat, which medically is inaccurate, by the way.
And I think, too, it's not just this policy and other policies. It's the social impacts that is going to have a domino effect on teenage or younger pregnancies, and the mental health implications, the health implications, the financial, the status, everything. And the unwillingness of the people that have turned over Roe v. Wade, the unwillingness of them to support policies that will help
Right.
the fact that people are having to have children.
Right. And I think that's a really important phrase that you just used. People are having to have children.
Yes.
This is forced birth, which the United Nations has ruled a crime against humanity, for the record. There are a lot of really emboldened extremist legislators in office right now. And unfortunately, because of their numbers, they are able to influence policy in accordance to their extremist religious beliefs.
6 people undid 49 years.
Right.
Basically, roll this back almost 50 years.
Right. And I think part of why we wanted to talk about Roe v. Wade is, yes, it's timely, yes, it's important, and yes, we are both very much aware of the long-lasting consequences and implications of this, but also Roe v. Wade has been around for the entire time that I have been alive. The entire time that I have been alive, people have been granted this right to abortion. And I also want to say it's not just the right to abortion, it's the right to safe abortion. Abortion has always and will always has always happened and will always happen. It's just now not going to be in a safe manner. South Carolina is trying to also pass legislation that would make it illegal for you to travel outside of the state to obtain an abortion. And first of all, how are you going to enforce that? And second, that's really scary. The people who are being criminalized for abortion are not just the person getting an abortion, which abortion should not be criminalized regardless.
Right.
There are so many reasons that a person may or may not need to get an abortion. And I think regardless of your reason, it's never an easy decision to make. And again, it's a person's body. They have the right to say what does and does not happen to it.
Exactly.
But every person that I've ever known who has gotten an abortion, it was not an emotionally easy decision.
No, it
was one pretty much consistently made out of necessity and of self-awareness that I'm not in a place to have a child. And I think that's really fair. There are so many kids in the foster care system that
stay in the foster care system.
And where is the conversation about these kids when you're forcing people to carry children? That, again,
there isn't. That's the thing. They're not concerned about life.
Right. They're not pro-life.
No.
They are pro-forced birth.
Yeah.
Some of the original language of this bill included the phrase domestic supply of infants. Yeah.
Okay, that's alarming.
Yes, it is very alarming. I didn't realize you didn't know that. Yes. No. There's a phrase, the domestic supply of infants. What they are trying to do, essentially, is have a supply for this capitalist regime, because everything is connected and everything does come back to capitalism. Capitalism in America has always been the sake of profit over the sake of human health and human life. People are going to die with Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Oh, yeah.
Either through...
And disproportionately.
Exactly. Disproportionately Black women who already face disproportionate rates of maternal mortality.
Yeah.
Not morality. That's a completely different thing.
Yeah. And they're... it disproportionately affects them from a financial aspect, from, a social aspect, health aspects,
Right.
all the way around.
Right. And like people who are poor, which again are going to be largely people of color because that's how this country has been built. They may not afford, probably will not be able to afford prenatal care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lower middle class, but for the first time in my life, like, I am comfortable financially, and I still could not afford right now prenatal care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's expensive to go to all of the doctor's appointments that you have to go to when you're pregnant.
Oh, ridiculous.
And
having a baby
right
is ridiculously expensive.
I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars easily.
And that's if it all goes okay.
Right. That is if it all goes okay.
Yeah.
And I'm also, in addition to being non-binary, I'm intersex. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, so like my uterus is very finicky as it is. Realistically, I have not spoken with a fertility doctor, but realistically, my chances of having a womb viable for pregnancy in general are fairly low. If I were to get pregnant, therefore, the risk is
goes up
exponentially increases.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to have a baby, first of all, I would have to also, I mean, not even have a baby. Let's backtrack a little bit.
Get pregnant.
If I were to get pregnant, it would be a very intentional decision because, again, I'm very queer. Very, very queer. I would likely have to talk with fertility doctors and probably a sperm donor, and there are expenses for the queer community leading up to pregnancy before you even get to the pregnancy part.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I am a high-risk individual, because of the way my uterus and ovaries are typically formed, like, it would be extra important for me to attend these prenatal visits and these visits during pregnancy. And I could very easily have an ectopic pregnancy where the uterus or the fetus is developing outside of the uterus,
which is very,
very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And very realistically, very likely would kill me. Would very likely kill anybody, or at least most people who experience an ectopic pregnancy. It does not go well.
Yeah, if you don't get to the doctor and have the medical treatment, which is abortion.
Exactly. The medical treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is abortion. And if you are outlawing abortion, then you are outlawing this necessary procedure. You are literally valuing the life of a fetus over that of a living, breathing human being. And likely,
not to mention the fetus is going to die as well.
Exactly. That was my next point. Yeah. Is you were valuing the life of this fetus who also will not survive.
No.
Over the life of this living, breathing human being. So instead of killing, if you even want to use that term, and I don't because it's not accurate, instead of disposing of realistically a clump of cells, a clump of non-viable for life cells. I'm messing up my words today, folks. Non-viable for life cells. You could save a life, or you can take one. Effectively, in your eyes, take two.
Yeah.
Even
because if that's your argument that it is a life,
right,
then you have to accept the fact that you've now created two deaths.
And I don't know, why do I feel like I'm presented with the trolley problem and ethics, but like even less so, because I think the part of the ethical conundrum with the trolley is one of the people and you don't know those 10 people, right? Like realistically, you don't know any of these people. So then it's a factor, it's just a factor of mathematics. Plain simple, 2 is greater than 1, even by their logic. And so I fundamentally do not understand, unless, like we've said, it's not about being pro-life. It's about control over bodies that don't look like yours. Because also, 5 of the 6 people who overturned 49 years of liberty
were men.
Do not have uteruses.
Yeah.
This is not something that is going to really ever impact them, unless, here's where we get to adultery, unless they have mistresses who will always be able to get abortion. Don't think for a second that these people don't think the rules that they made don't apply to them.
Right.
And I'm not saying all of them do have mistresses. I don't know their business that way. I just think statistically it's likely that some of the legislators...
It's common.
...probably have mistresses, because adultery is common. And they can afford to keep it hush-hush. Part of keeping adultery hush-hush, if there is an unexpected pregnancy, is abortion. So they're always going to be able to travel to wherever they need to get this procedure. And it'll be kept under wraps, of course. But
I saw something on TikTok, and I'm not suggesting anybody use that as a great source of information. But
this video is not sponsored by TikTok.
No, but the lady had a point about what are we doing for these children that are going to start being mothers.
Right.
You know, like...
And there will be children.
Yeah, and she's the example of a 10-year-old that gets molested or raped or what have you, and is now forced to be a mother.
Right.
And like how, you know, who's making the decisions for that child that's carrying a child now? Are the parents the ones making the decision?
Right. And how often are the parents, unfortunately, the abusers?
I mean,
it happens frequently. I used to work in a child advocacy center.
Frequently, it's in the house or a relative that is there.
So, frequently, the abuser or someone at least very close to the abuser is going to be making the decisions for these children. And they, again, are children. Legally, they can't vote. They are legally dependent.
Yep.
And like...
And, you know, I don't think... Well, in my mind, I'm like, how could they overturn Roe v. Wade if they had considered a scenario like that? You know, to me, it should have just stayed in place. But I'm trying, like, I try to understand how they come to a decision. And I'm like, if you heard that scenario, how could you do it?
Right. I mean, again, this is going to impact people living in poverty and people of color, especially Black people, at disproportionate rates. Not to say that Black families are more likely to sexually... That's not what I'm saying at all.
No.
Not at all.
It's across the board.
It is across the board, but again, like, it's going to fall... Like, access to abortion has always, but especially now, will always fall along poverty lines, which fall along racial lines.
Yeah. Because now you will, most likely, you know, unless you happen to live in a state where you can do it safely and legally, you're going to have to travel. Traveling costs money. I mean, if you're driving, God help you with the gas.
Right. It's
I
at
mean,
least $100
yeah, it
for
and
a full tank there and back,
a
wherever you're
place
going.
to stay, because
It,
really, you need somebody with you.
mm-hmm.
And it's not like you just waltz in and waltz out and
Right.
go on your way.
No, there's a recovery period.
It's a medical procedure.
Right. There is a recovery period. And again, I've never had an abortion. But the people that I know who have, it is a fairly extensive recovery period.
Physically and
emotionally. Right.
And it's, it's one of those things that would, sticks with you. It's not, like certain things you don't really ever get to the acceptance part of it. It's like kind of half acceptance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think full acceptance would have peace with it, but it's not one of those kind of things. I thought, because I was at the James Taylor concert in Charlotte the day that it happened. It it was in the back of I had to put it in the back of my mind because I wanted to enjoy that time. But on the way back, it's all I could think about.
Right.
And the only thing I can compare it to is like I went through like the stages of grief.
Oh, I absolutely went through the stages.
You know
of
what
grief.
I mean?
Like,
because absolutely I mean, I've been in a denial, I think, for a long time about this happening. But it's like that. The acceptance part. No. Mm-mm.
Right.
You can't accept this.
Right. And then we shouldn't accept this.
No.
Like, I'm still so much grieving. My experience the day that Roe v. Wade was overturned, I found out pretty much immediately. I work in social justice realm professionally, and just I have a deep passion for it. And I was at work. I was at work at a LGBTQIA plus organization here in Charleston, and I heard from some activist friends who are on the front lines of this that it had been overturned. And then my executive director was in a meeting just one room over, and I heard someone on the meeting say, "Oh my God, Roe v. Wade was just overturned." And I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned. I knew that we would have to issue some sort of statement because obviously my organization does not stand for Roe v. Wade being overturned, because again, it does impact queer people specifically and exponentially. I mean, not specifically, but like it has a greater impact on LGBTQIA folks, and especially LGBTQ.
It's a domino effect.
It is a domino effect. Exactly.
This is the beginning.
Right. And my executive director, when she gets off her meeting, she comes to my office and she asks if I'm okay. And I sat in silence trying to find the words to express how I was feeling, because I was certainly not okay for probably easily 30 seconds to a minute. And my boss said, "I'm going to take that as a no."
And I think,
she asked where my partner was, and I told her they were at work, and she said, "Okay, well, I'm sending you home, but I'm not sending you home until your partner's there," because I was that clearly not okay. Like, I had to lay on my floor with like meditation music playing to center myself at all. Because no, I'm not okay.
No.
Like,
And
every aspect of my identity as an assigned female, non-binary, intersex, and hugely queer person, all of that is under attack. And I thank my lucky stars every day, frankly, that I'm in this country, that I was not born black as well, because
mhm,
at least I can hold on to my white privilege. I don't know how black folks with similar identities are coping right now. If you need someone to lean on, I've got you,
yeah.
because you need and deserve all of the support right now.
hmm And I think, like, for me, I had to wait until that day after to kind of sink into what had happened and, frankly, kind of wallow.
Yeah, I absolutely wallowed. Like,
And,
I was supposed to have a poetry event
yeah.
that evening, and at first I really thought, no, I'm gonna go, and I thought I was gonna write something about Roe v. Wade being overturned and share it at the reading, but I didn't know what to say. I still don't know what to say. For a brief period, I considered going and acknowledging it and reading my poem about queer joy,
hmm
because I think queer joy is so needed right now. But at the end of the day, no, I ended up just spending the evening with my partner, because that's all either of us had the energy to do,
hmm
was just wallow in it with each other. Something my partner said that definitely really concerns me, because I think they're probably correct, this probably is necessary, is, don't worry, I'm going to get my passport in order. Um, there's a very real possibility, if this domino effect that we keep talking about happens, where Roe v. Wade falls, and then marriage equality falls, and then just all of these, Loving versus Virginia could fall too,
hmm
school board versus education, or Brown versus,
Brown versus
yes,
Board
thank
of
you,
Education.
Brown versus Board of Education, like, all of these human rights that have been garnered via Supreme Court cases now are in jeopardy. And there's a very real possibility that, for mine and my partner's
Yeah.
safety, because we are both non-binary, intersex, assigned
hmm
female, and very, very queer,
Yeah.
that we may legitimately have to flee the country, which is an alarming thought. But,
And
like,
these are judges that, when they were being vetted and questioned under oath, said they would not overturn precedent,
well,
which is exactly
I
what they've
think
done.
that went out the door. I mean, it was on its way out the door. Bigotry and ignorance
Yeah.
and divisiveness and hatred, they had been growing. I think, in part, honestly, maybe due to social media. We think we talked about that last time,
Yeah.
because people are so connected now, um, that allyships can be formed along lines that they shouldn't be formed in greater volumes than ever possible before.
hmm
Um, and then
And
then
influence
then there was
is
Trump.
rampant,
Right.
you know?
I mean, a person's job can be a social influencer.
hmm
So you have these already divisive times. And then you have Donald Trump as our president, and he's saying the quiet part out loud. He's emboldening
hmm
these people. When there was an insurrection on our country's capital, he called them fine folks, um, even though they were attacking the country's capital on the basis of white supremacy. um, and the lack of response to January 6th
That's all you need to
exactly.
see.
That's all you need to see. Really, truly, that is all you need to see. And Trump did not give a damn. Sorry for my language. Trump did not give a damn about precedent, other than to break it.
Mm-hmm.
He did so many unprecedented things.
Mm-hmm. And those, I mean,
including electing several of these Supreme Court justices.
Yes.
In really, really shady, sneaky ways. One of the people that he pushed through is Brett Kavanaugh, who was pushed through in the midst of a massive sexual assault trial.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, this man does not care about consent, does not care about bodily autonomy, cares about power and pushing his agenda and making sure that his people have power at any expense necessary.
And I mean,
and then after Trump, we had COVID, which is also unprecedented times. Really increased the divide, the class divide, so much.
Mm-hmm.
If it ever was going to happen, I guess now makes logical sense, but it shouldn't have ever happened. And the fact that it did, the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned at all,
is insanity.
Should be triggering a lot of people's fight or flight responses. And I'm somehow in this weird position where both my fight and my flight responses are triggered at the same time. Like I said,
I'm the same way, because even though I spent that time kind of wallowing, as you know, I was on a road trip back, and that's what I wrote. I did write a poem in my head, but I wrote the first half, sink into it, because this is devastating. What has happened? It is traumatic. It is horrible. And then I was like, and then once you sufficiently taken care of that part of it, fight.
Right. And I
make a plan.
Yes. I just recently, Thursday of this week, 2 days ago, I was at the State House. I've realized I don't have it in me to directly fight against the legislators. It triggers a trauma response in my brain. It's not good for me.
And there's levels of
right, exactly.
fighting.
There were over 100 people outside of the State House rallying for not even just abortion, but for human rights. Because again, abortion is human rights. Abortion is essential. Abortion is healthcare. That is fighting. I also think rallying can only go so far. And I don't frankly know a way to fight this that isn't rallying.
Right.
At least not one that I'm comfortable endorsing, because I really don't want to endorse violence.
Right.
Because but I also feel like at some point something's got to give, something's got to change, and I don't know what it'll look like for change to actually happen. I hope it doesn't take violence.
Yeah, no, I don't by no means want that to happen, but there's already going to be
There's already violence.
And
it is passive violence.
Yeah, it's already violence against anybody that has a uterus already.
Right.
And it can be, veiled however they want to veil it, but ultimately
it is violence.
It's an attack.
It is violence.
And
I don't know, I was talking to some of my activist friends at the State House, and one of them, who I very, very deeply look up to, they were like, just once I'd like to be on the offense instead of the
Yeah.
defense. And
Yeah.
I think that's definitely, yes, the way to go, because the legislators are playing the long game.
For sure.
And I don't necessarily want to play the long game either, though. Like,
well, that's the
change needs to happen now, but I don't know.
And that's the thing with it took so long to get that.
Right. And I forget that because
gone.
I forget sometimes how long it took to get, because again, I've always known abortion to be a guaranteed right.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of people fought and fought and fought and fought to get that.
That's true.
And now it's gone. And so, unfortunately, and maybe I'm a pessimist, but I don't see change happening quickly. What I do see is a push in the other direction quickly.
Yeah, I
just do. Because of things that are happening state by state.
Yeah.
But to get a federal protection back in there, I don't see it happening quickly. And I think that's one of the most devastating things.
I agree. Biden did, I think yesterday, have a press conference, though, and I don't necessarily support or endorse Biden. He was definitely the lesser of two evils in 2020. Was it, my God, was it just 2020? Yeah, it was just 2020.
Yeah, it was.
Jesus. He was definitely the lesser of two evils. It doesn't mean that he was great. But he did.
Once somebody's president, it's like, okay, let's see what you're going to do.
He did not codify Roe, which I think would have been the ultimate move. But he did say that it can't be criminalized. So I don't know how you're going to make it illegal without criminalizing it. But I think I don't want to be spreading false information, but that's my understanding, and I'll drop in the comments if I'm incorrect.
Yeah, and I can't speak on it because I don't know.
I guess the final note, looking at the time on this topic before we pull our next topic, is just rest up.
Yeah.
Because the fighting is coming, and we need as many people fighting in whatever way. Yes.
RBG.
Yes.
She was a small little thing, but she had a mighty
voice.
Yes.
And we cannot all be RBG for sure. But we can all fight, and there is fighting at every level. There's fighting. Mutual aid is fighting. Mm-hmm. Taking care of your comrades on the front line, that's fighting. Being one of the comrades on the front line, that's fighting. Policy change is fighting. And hiring.
Letter writing.
Go
old school. Right. Letter write even. Call.
Everyone has a place in this fight, and we need everyone to take their place in this fight. And yes, rest. Allow yourself to feel the yuckiness, because there's a lot of yuckiness right now.
Yeah.
But use it to embolden yourself.
Yeah,
it's so easy. It is so easy to feel hopeless right now. I definitely, when the news first broke, felt hopeless. We cannot give in to hopelessness. That's what they're wanting. They are wanting hopelessness. They are wanting us to wave a white flag. Yep. No.
They want us just to acquiesce.
Right.
And no.
And exactly. We can't, because this is already violence against humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the start of a domino effect.
Yeah. And a huge one. And
a terrifying one.
Fiscally conservative person, look at it from that standpoint. If you don't get it from a social perspective.
Right. everyone
it'll
should be outraged.
Tank the economy.
Yes.
Like, I'm just trying to think, like, if that's the angle you're coming from, do the math.
Do the math. Every way you look at this. Oop, that is our reminder to pull our next topic. So we're going to wrap up my last sentence and then finish it out. Yeah. Look at the math.
Yeah.
Look at it socially. Look at it however you need to look at it, because no matter which way you look at it, this is scary, this is dangerous, and this is violence. So rest, because the fight is coming.
I was thinking about the lyric in that Brandy Carlisle song, The Joke. I think, is that the name of the song?
I don't know.
But there's a line about a woman, like, it sounds like she's on a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get the lyrics wrong, but the gist of it is, you look tired, but you don't look scared.
Ooh, I like that.
And
yeah.
I, like, every time I hear her sing it, I'm like, yeah, I'm tired, but I am not scared. And, you know, before this, you know, a couple of years ago, when they were talking about, I was just like, I was kind of like the attitude, I'm sick of this being a topic. Why is it still a topic?
Right. Why is this still
and
a topic of conversation?
And I was that much in that denial phase that this could ever happen. So I think, yeah, definitely allow yourself time to sink in, but then you're tired, but you're not scared.
Right. Which reminds me, the topic of our next Lighthouse conversation will be an interview between myself and my partner. Actually, like I said, we are both intersex and non-binary, and we are going to talk pretty openly and candidly about our fears related to Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Yeah.
And that will happen 2 weeks from today, on the 23rd of July, and then 2 weeks from that, which is August 6th, which seems ridiculous. Becky and I will be back.
We might film inside.
Oh my gosh, and we're talking about
cool,
mental health. So, looks like we're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade for a hot minute, because we need to, because I don't want this to just die down. I don't want us to sit quietly about this and take this as just fact, because it doesn't have to be fact.
Yeah, because they want it to die down.
Exactly. So, I refuse, personally.
I refuse to.
So, join us once again 2 weeks from today on the 23rd of July. I'll be talking with my partner, Magz Heat, about being intersex and non-binary and queer in a post-Roe world. And then join us again on August, whatever I just said.
I don't remember. You know, 6th? I don't remember. I'm the
Join
worst.
us again, yes, on August 6th. And it'll be Becky and I back at it again, talking about mental health.
Maybe talking inside if the heat increases.
Yeah.
Because today's pretty rough.
It's a little rough out here in Charleston, South Carolina. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.